Imagine waking up tomorrow, knowing that one decision will determine whether you ever make it home. Not because you're standing on a battlefield, not because you're caught in a war, but because you're alone, trapped, hidden deep inside a canyon where no one can hear your voice, no phone signal, almost no water, and with every passing hour, one truth becomes harder to ignore. The rock isn't going to move, so the question becomes, will you? Most of us hope we'll never face a moment like that. Yet, in the spring of 2003, one young adventurer found himself living that impossible reality. His name was Aron Ralston, and over the next 127 hours, he would discover something extraordinary. Sometimes life doesn't ask us to find a way. Sometimes it asks us to create one. Before the canyon, Aron's life was almost exactly where he wanted it to be. He wasn't searching for adventure. Adventure was simply how he chose to live. Growing up in the United States, he developed a deep love for the outdoors. Mountains weren't obstacles to him, they were invitations. The more difficult the climb, the more alive he felt. While many people sought comfort in routine, Aron found freedom in uncertainty, a narrow trail, a steep cliff, an unexplored canyon. Those places didn't frighten him. They gave him a sense of peace. To outsiders, it might have looked reckless, but to Aron, it was simply life. He prepared carefully, he trusted his abilities, and over time, confidence became one of his greatest strengths. Like many strengths, it also carried a hidden danger, because confidence can quietly convince us that tomorrow will always resemble yesterday. That experience guarantees safety, that the next adventure will end the same way the last one did. For Aron, those assumptions remained unchallenged until one Saturday morning. It was April 26, 2003. The weather was clear. The Utah desert stretched endlessly beneath a bright blue sky. The kind of day photographers dream about. The kind of day hikers wait for. Aron packed his gear and headed toward a remote place known as Bluejohn Canyon. He had explored difficult terrain before. This was simply another adventure. One more chance to enjoy the freedom he loved. There was only one decision that, in hindsight, would change everything. He didn't tell anyone exactly where he was going. Not because he expected danger, because he expected to be back before anyone needed to know. It's a small detail, the kind most of us would never think twice about. Yet life has a strange way of turning ordinary decisions into extraordinary consequences. As Aron descended deeper into the narrow sandstone canyon, the towering walls rose around him. Sunlight slipped through the gaps above. The silence grew heavier. The deeper he traveled, the farther he moved from the rest of the world. Then, in less than a second, everything changed. A loose boulder suddenly shifted beneath his weight. Before he could react, the massive rock crashed downward, pinned his right arm tightly against the canyon wall. The impact happened almost instantly. The silence returned just as quickly. Aron pulled. Nothing. He pushed. Nothing. He twisted. Nothing. The boulder didn't move. At first, he probably believed this was simply another problem to solve. A difficult one, but still temporal. After all, people get stuck. Then they get rescued. That's how stories usually go. So he kept trying. Again. And again. And again. Hours passed. The desert sun climbed overhead. His muscles grew tired. His water supply became smaller. Still, he believed someone would eventually come, because hope often arrives before reality. And in the beginning, hope can sound remarkably convincing. The first night arrived quietly as the desert sun slipped behind the towering canyon walls. The heat that had baked the rocks throughout the day disappeared with surprising speed. Warmth gave way to cold. The silence grew heavier. And somewhere beneath thousands of stars, Aron remained exactly where he had been when the boulder fell. His arms still trapped, the rock still unmoved, his situation unchanged. Perhaps that first night still carried hope. Not certainty, but hope. Surely someone would notice he was missing. Surely another hiker would pass through. Surely tomorrow would look different from today. Hope has a remarkable way of borrowing confidence from tomorrow. It whispers, "Just wait a little longer." Morning came. The sunlight returned. The canyon looked almost peaceful. It was difficult to believe such a beautiful place could become a prison. Aron pulled against the boulder again. He searched for leverage. He experimented with ropes and climbing equipment. He chipped at the rock with the small tools he carried. Every idea deserved a chance. Every possibility was worth trying. Because as long as another option existed, he didn't have to face the one possibility his mind refused to consider. Time passed differently inside that canyon. There were no meetings, no traffic, no schedules, only light, then darkness, day, then night. And with each passing cycle, something invisible began to change. Not the rock, Aron. His water grew scarce. His food began to disappear. His body weakened. But perhaps the greatest battle wasn't physical. It was mental, because the mind does something interesting when reality refuses to cooperate. It negotiates. Maybe if I wait another day, maybe someone has already started looking. Maybe I don't have to make the decision I'm beginning to fear. We rarely notice ourselves doing it. Yet many of us have stood in our own versions of that canyon, waiting for the conversation to become easier, waiting for the opportunity to arrive, waiting for someone else to solve a problem that quietly belongs to us. Sometimes waiting is wise. Sometimes it becomes another kind of prison. By the third day, reality was becoming impossible to ignore. No voices echoed through the canyon. No footsteps approached. No rescue helicopter appeared overhead. The silence itself had become an answer. Not the answer Aron wanted, but an answer nonetheless. There is a painful kind of freedom that arrives when illusion finally gives way to truth. Because once you stop waiting for life to become different, you can finally begin asking what is still possible. That question changes everything. Not because it removes the obstacle, because it changes the person facing it. Aron stopped asking, "When will someone come?" And slowly, almost reluctantly, another question began to emerge. If no one comes, what can I still do? That may have been the most important moment of the entire journey. Not because anything changed around him. Nothing did. The canyon remained silent. The boulder remained exactly where it had always been. His arm was still trapped. But inside his mind, something had shifted. Hope was no longer looking toward the horizon. It was looking inward. And sometimes, that is where real courage quietly begins. By the 5th day, there was almost nothing left to negotiate. The water was gone. His strength was fading. The canyon had answered every hope of rescue with silence. Sometimes life closes every other door, not to punish us, but to reveal the one that has been there all along. Not the door we wanted, the door that remains. For Aron, that realization carried a weight almost impossible to imagine. He understood something with heartbreaking clarity. If he stayed where he was, the canyon would eventually become his final resting place. The rock had not trapped only his arm. It had trapped his future, and in that moment, the question changed one last time. No longer, will someone save me? No longer, can I move the rock? Now it became, how much am I willing to sacrifice to keep living? No one can answer that question for another person. Not family, not friends, not even those who love us most. There are moments in life when the next step belongs to us alone. With extraordinary courage and unimaginable resolve, Aron made the decision that would save his life. It was a decision no one hopes to face. A choice born not out of desperation alone, but out of a profound determination to live. The details of that moment have been told many times. They are difficult to hear, but perhaps the details are not the point. The point is this: he chose life, even when the cost was immense, even when the road ahead promised pain instead of relief. The decision freed him from the rock, but it did not end his journey. He still had to descend steep canyon walls, still had to walk through the desert under an unforgiving sun. His body was exhausted. Every step demanded more than he seemed to have left. And yet, he kept moving. Perhaps that's another truth we rarely talk about. The hardest decision is not always the finish line. Sometimes, it's simply the beginning of the next climb. Eventually, after hours of determined effort, Aron encountered other hikers. For the first time in nearly 6 days, he was no longer alone. Help had finally arrived, but not at the beginning of his story. At the end of his decision, rescuers soon transported him to safety. The ordeal that had begun with one falling boulder had finally come to an end. Yet, in another sense, something far more important had just begun. The man who entered Bluejohn Canyon was not the same man who emerged from it. Not because the canyon had taken something from him, but because it had revealed something within him. Years later, Aron would return to the mountains. He continued climbing, continued exploring, not because he had forgotten what happened, but because he refused to let one moment of unimaginable hardship define the rest of his life. He became a husband, a father, a speaker, an author, and in time, his story reached millions of people around the world. Many remember it because of the extraordinary decision he made, but perhaps that isn't the deepest lesson he left behind. Sometimes we all find ourselves standing before a rock that refuses to move, a loss that cannot be undone, a circumstance that refuses to change, a door that never opens. First we wait, then we hope, then we bargain with tomorrow. But every so often, life quietly asks a different question. Not, when will this obstacle disappear? But, who will you become if it doesn't? the rock in Aron's canyon never moved. He did. And perhaps that is where his greatest victory was found. Not in escaping the canyon, but in refusing to let the canyon become the end of his story. Because there are moments when life doesn't offer an easy way forward. There are moments when no rescue appears on the horizon, when every option carries a cost. And yet, even then, one choice still remains. The choice to move. The choice to create a path where none seems to exist. The choice to believe that while we cannot always choose our circumstances, we can still choose our response. Sometimes, the greatest miracle isn't that the obstacle disappears. It's discovering that we are stronger than the obstacle before us. And perhaps, that's what courage has always been. Not waiting for the rock to move, but finding the strength to move beyond it. This is the power of pain, where broken stories become unbreakable strength. Thank you for watching.